A man somehow woke up in the modern era after 900 years. His body had been frozen inside a glacier and drifted to an unknown location. A girl was about to jump into the river to commit suicide when people noticed something trapped in the glacier. They started shouting, and even the girl stopped to look. As we shift scenes, we see how his situation unfolded. The man was fighting against several people, with a girl standing behind him. There was nowhere to escape. Behind them was the waterfall. With no other choice, he fought right where he stood. The enemies attacked together, but he blocked all their strikes with a single hand using his sword. The onlookers were shocked. He kept fighting at that spot for 3 to 4 days, killing countless enemies. The ground was covered in corpses, yet more people kept coming, and he continued fighting relentlessly. In the end, he single-handedly slaughtered around 300 soldiers. After that, their leader came and said, "Impressive." He praised him, saying, "I expected the best swordsman, Chok Ryugeam." He takes out his sword and says that he knows poison has spread in his body, and you can see in his hand he wanted to save the girl. The enemy leader says he needs to save the girl from his life, so be prepared to die. Suddenly, their leader appears in front of him at incredible speed, wielding 2 swords, and plunges into his chest. The sword comes out, and at that moment, he was telling the girl that he had promised to protect her and to keep her alive. Using his last strength, he grabbed the enemy leader and fell into the river. As they fall, the leader's mask comes off. The warrior's eyes widened in shock as he saw the man's face. "Yawn," he muttered before both fell into the water. The scene shifts to the modern era. A group of men sat drinking coffee, watching him closely. They whispered among themselves, saying, "This man doesn't belong to this era." They were part of the Secret Intelligence Service's DLS research team. Their leader is this guy, Zhang. Surprisingly, despite being frozen for centuries, the warrior showed no signs of aging or injury. The researchers were stunned. One of their people says that maybe they shouldn't have kept him like this. He had a lot of trouble breathing. But the team leader replied, "His body is unlike anything we've ever seen, and it will not cause him any trouble. Until we know where he came from and what his purpose is, we can't afford to set him free." But that man says with a smile that he didn't mean that. He just wants to be taken care of properly, not kept like an animal. And that man feels that maybe it's a gift from God that this person suddenly ended up in this place. The team leader, walking out of the room, responded coldly, "A gift or destruction. We'll only know once we unwrap it." Meanwhile, the warrior suddenly woke up. The scene shifts again. Then we see a man who was driving a car, and both were watching in amazement at something. The man was running faster than the car's speed, moving at 80 kilometers per hour. Chaos erupted as cars crashed. Pedestrians gasped, recording everything on their phones. The warrior ran, his mind racing. "This isn't a dream. This place, it's completely different from the world I knew." Suddenly, police surrounded him, warning civilians to stay back. "This area is dangerous." An officer ordered his junior to arrest the man. As they approached, the warrior muttered to himself, "I fell into the waterfall with Yan, so how did I end up here?" A cop leaned in and whispered, "Don't resist. Just come with us quietly." The officers grabbed his arms, but he remained lost in thought. It might be the girl who did this, who is the follower of Yan, and his power deals with the opponent's mind like an illusion. He throws those 2 policemen into the air. Just then, a cop behind him fired a taser. The warrior caught the electric wires with just 2 fingers. 3 more officers shocked him at once, sending powerful electric currents through his body, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he gripped the wires, yanked the officers into the air, and swung them around like rag dolls before throwing them to the ground. The crowd stood in stunned silence. More police arrived, this time a special forces unit, but he still didn't stop. He stomped on the road, causing the ground to crack beneath him. The impact sent approaching cars flying. The man dashes away, moving like a blur, leaping onto a building. The police officers watching are stunned. Was he even human? Meanwhile, inside a car, a man is on the phone, trying to understand the situation. That man is none other than the director of the National Intelligence Service. Someone reports to him that their forces failed to capture the target, and now they're preparing for another attempt. Frustrated, the director clenches his fist. "Special forces won't be enough. We can't catch him like this. He's already caused massive destruction." We then see the man standing atop a building, watching everything unfold. In the same car, the president watches a video of the chaos. He frowns. This man, he doesn't belong to this era. Talking to him directly might be the best approach. No matter how many soldiers we send, I doubt it will work. Down below, an overwhelming force is assembling. Dozens of military trucks, helicopters circling above, and countless armed soldiers storm the building, surrounding their target. Every soldier is armed and ready, aiming their guns at him. But the man? He simply picks up a broomstick. That's all he needs. One of the soldiers fires a shot close to his leg. The soldier taunts, "Your martial arts won't help you now. Just surrender or we'll put you down for good." But the man doesn't even flinch. Instead, he stretches his limbs, preparing for battle. He grips the broomstick like a sword and smirks. "Let's see who falls first." One of the officers laughs and pulls the trigger again. But just then, a voice orders them to stop. The president is arriving. He steps forward and tells his men to lower their weapons. Facing the mysterious man, the president speaks calmly. "I apologize for how you've been treated. Welcome to this place. This is the future Korea." Extending his hand for a handshake, the president tries to establish peace, but instead of shaking hands, the man swings his broomstick. Instantly, gunfire erupts. The soldiers open fire without hesitation. Just as the gunfire starts, the president immediately orders them to stop. He clutches his throat, trying to process what just happened to him. Meanwhile, the protagonist is staring at his own hand, lost in thought about the girl. The illusions she created feel way too real. But why would someone trap him inside an illusion like this? Everything he just experienced felt so real that he starts to believe this place is real. Then, in a sudden shift, he finds himself inside the president's safe house. A meal is placed in front of him, and guards are all around, protecting the president. The protagonist, still trying to grasp the situation, asks where he is. The president tells him, "This is a secret base. Right now, you're in a safe place." As they eat, the president casually drops a bombshell. "You are 900 years in the future." The protagonist instinctively checks his shoulder. The poison that had been there, it's gone. The pain too. Seeing his reaction, the president says, "Modern technology made it possible. Back in your time, this kind of treatment would have been impossible." Trying to reassure him, the president adds, "There's no need to be afraid. We'll take good care of you and help you adjust to reality." He hands the protagonist a piece of meat, but warns, "There's a catch." Before the protagonist can ask what, one of the men turns on a TV. The news shows footage of a man moving at an inhuman speed, so fast he was found frozen inside a glacier. But then comes the twist. The president reveals that everything, the footage, the discovery, was staged, just a movie production. They don't want the world to know the truth, the president explains. "If people found out that someone like you appeared in the modern era, they'd lose their minds." The president watches the footage and shakes his head. A frozen human? Someone who survived in ice for 900 years? No way anyone would believe that, he says. But power like that, a body capable of enduring centuries in a glacier? No other country has anything like that. Even with all their modern technology, something like this should be impossible. And yet, right in front of them, there he is, the man who survived for 900 years. The president leans forward. "Be honest with me. For our country, for our descendants, cooperate with us." But the protagonist doesn't hesitate. "No." He gets up, walks to the door, and pushes it open. "I'm not accepting any of your conditions. Just because I woke up in this era doesn't mean I have to obey you." Immediately, the guards move in, blocking his path. One of them grabs his arm, while others stand ready with their guns. The president sighs. "If you won't listen willingly, then there's no need to play nice." Without another word, the guards fire, shooting him with sleeping darts. One of them thinks, even if his body resists tasers, these should put him to sleep. But the moment the needles hit his skin, something shocking happens. They don't go in. It's as if an invisible force is stopping them. The darts simply fall to the ground. The protagonist clenches his fists. In an instant, he grabs two of the men and hurls them aside like rag dolls. His eyes darken, his presence turning cold and terrifying. "I've had enough. Can I leave now?" The president, however, isn't one to back down. "He's too dangerous," he mutters. "We can't let him go." More guards surround him, their weapons crackling with electricity, this time even more powerful than before. One of them lunges, trying to stab him but he dodges effortlessly. Then, all at once, the guards attack. "This taser is 10 times more powerful than before," one shouts, but it doesn't matter. His movements are too fast, so fast they can't even land a hit. They watch, stunned, as he slips past every attack. Without another word, he walks toward the exit. No one dares to stop him. They can only stand there, watching. There's nothing we can do against him. Meanwhile, the president watches him leave, deep in thought. I let him go. But capturing him is impossible. Just then, an officer bursts through the door. "We've found him," he says urgently, "and the whole world can see where he is." He, standing atop the tallest building in the city, is the protagonist. Helicopters circle behind him. Then, without hesitation, he jumps. As he falls, his mind is empty. "This reality means nothing to me. I have no purpose. The people I wanted to protect are gone. Even the one I wanted revenge against doesn't exist in this era. In a world like this, there's no reason for me to keep living." Just as he's about to hit the ground, a massive screen flashes in front of him. It's Yeon. At that moment, memories start flooding back. He remembers holding on to the girl, someone telling him that he successfully saved her. But in the illusion, his family was slaughtering each other. Yeon and that girl were standing there doing all this. He says this is just the beginning of destruction. I'll destroy everything in my path. Meanwhile, he's still falling. But then a thought crosses his mind. Maybe he is alive in the future, and thinking this, he doesn't commit suicide. He performs a martial arts technique with his hands, which allows him to pause mid-air, and slowly, he descends to the ground and looks at the massive screen in front of him. Back at the president's base, the president was asking his men if he really fell down or committed suicide. They say they will have to find his body to know whether he is dead or not, but a witness has been found, and the president is excitedly asking what the witness said. He was only asking about actor Yanwoo. An actor? The president frowns. Yes, Yanwoo. He's a huge star now, an action film legend. There's probably no one in Korea who doesn't know him. He's won countless trophies and has an enormous fan base, even among top idols. And the one telling all of this? Just a kid, standing right in front of him, pointing at the screen. It's showing a birthday message. Happy birthday, Yanwoo. The protagonist stares at the screen, deep in thought. Two possibilities. If he is in this future, then he truly will be that. But it's also possible that it's just someone who looks like him. He clenches his fist and presses it against the screen. I need to meet him. I have so much to ask him. Impossible. You think you can just meet a celebrity that easily? The kid is thinking, this guy must be an insane. Before can react, the protagonist, now furious, smashes his head against the screen, shattering it instantly. The sudden violence makes the kid stumble back and fall to the ground in fear. Protagonist glares at him. Do you know how to meet him or not? Terrified, the kid stammers. There's no way. He's too famous. You can't just walk up to him. He has just gone to the United States and he has seen the article. Scene changes, and we see Yan eating his meal. Just as he's eating, a man suddenly punches him in the face. That man then complains that he forgot his line. But then we see that it was actually acting, and the director is talking. Everyone is discussing how that man keeps deliberately hitting him. The same scene has been repeated multiple times, but still that person can't remember his line, so he keeps hitting Yeon. Because of this, one side of Yeon's face is swollen, yet he still smiles and says that the guy should hit the other side too. Otherwise, he might not be able to say his line properly. A lighting fixture suddenly falls from above, heading straight for that man. Without thinking, Yeon jumps and pushes him out of the way. Everyone is shocked. When they look again, both of them are fine. But the man is staring at Yeon in disbelief. His hand is full of glass shards. Yeon tells him he's okay and asks if he's hurt. And we see Yeon getting first aid on his hand. A man standing in front of him asks, "Are you crazy? Why did you help that guy? What if something had happened to you?" Yeon replies that his body just reacted on its own. Fans have sent him so many gifts that his room is completely filled. So he asks for some of the gifts to be donated to a hospital. Then he apologizes for messing up the filming schedule. But the man tells him there's no need to worry about that. It's good that he didn't get seriously injured. However, this isn't the time to think about that. The president has summoned him. Hearing this, Yeon looks shocked, his mouth slightly open. The scene changes again, showing the blue house where the president resides. He tells his men that if there's anything important, they should handle it now. As he steps outside, he sees the protagonist. The moment he lays eyes on him, the president says, only he can enter this place. Security is tight, and guards surround the area. And we see, 9 hours before, he suddenly comes in front of the president and says he has a request. If he fulfills it, he will listen to whatever they say. Then he presents a picture to the president and says he needs to meet this person in another country as soon as possible without asking any questions. The president agrees and extends his hand towards him, saying that if he cooperates, he will definitely fulfill the request afterward. They shake hands and the deal is made. Then they were standing outside a corridor, and he asked when he could meet him. The president replied that although he was the president, meeting him was still a bit difficult because he was a very famous actor who was very busy. However, at the president's request, he came, and that's when the door opened. Inside the room, Yeon was present. The president introduces both of them. They talk together, and he shakes hands. When he holds his hand, he feels his chi, which was completely absent. Chi is the source of power that's referred to as chi, or internal energy. Seeing this, the protagonist becomes a bit sad. The presidents can talk. The president needs to go to the bathroom, and then he goes outside, telling his men to stand outside and keep an eye on them. All the other men leave as well. They talk. The protagonist realizes he is not Yeon, just a doppelganger of a future. Then Yeon stands up and quietly tells him that he is alive. Hearing this, he gets angry but says, "So, it's you, Yeon." Yeon, staying calm, replies, "It's been a long time since we last met." At that moment, the protagonist realizes Yeon had completely hidden his chi, which is why he couldn't sense him. He asks, "When did you arrive in the future?" But Yeon doesn't answer. Instead, he says, "Even if you kill me, you won't gain anything." And then says, "It hasn't been long since you arrived in the future, has it? You don't look like someone who has been here for long." Then he asks, "Was bringing me to the future your plan? Or was it just a trick?" Yeon smiles and says, "How could that be possible?" The protagonist then asks, "Is Miss alive in the future?" He was probably talking about the girl he wanted to save. Yeon finishes his tea and then smirks. Are you talking about the girl you tried to protect? He laughs and says, I have no idea if she's still alive in the future or not. Hearing this, the protagonist, filled with rage, slams his hand on the table, breaking it into pieces. The force is so strong that Yeon, who was sitting on a chair, is sent flying backward into the wall, shattering it. The protagonist coldly says, I'll find the answer myself. Yeon slowly gets up and sighs. Why does it always have to be a fight? But in his mind, he knows he can't defeat the protagonist alone. Raising his hand, Yeon says, While it looks like you wouldn't care for it regardless, be assured that we won't be interrupted. He has sealed the space with illusions, ensuring no one outside will know what's happening inside. Yeon then charges at the protagonist, ready to strike, but the protagonist picks up a piece of broken wall, grips it tightly and says, You're not Yeon. Yeon had been hiding his chi for a long time, but now the protagonist can sense it, and it's far too weak, and after watching Yeon's movements, he realizes the truth. You're the same girl, the one who uses illusions. Yeon smirks and says, I didn't think I'd get caught so soon. The protagonist replies coldly, I didn't think you'd come back in his place. I killed you that day. Then we see the truth. This isn't Yeon. It's that same girl, Yeon's companion. The real Yeon isn't here. She is just his illusion that everyone sees as Yeon. The girl then speaks as if you already know everything. Yeon is a famous celebrity in this world now, and I'm currently disguised as him, handling some of his work. And whatever work he has, he does it and tells Yeon everything. Today, he has big news that the protagonist is alive, and after killing him, Yeon will be even happier. He uses his technique to create illusion clones. Many clones just like him come out of his body. There is no need to hide his power. Suddenly, he attacks his body with a pipe and brings him down to the ground, holding him with the pipe, and he says, It's better if you keep your mouth shut. But the girl says, You're letting out that much ki with a body that hasn't been awake for long, which is a one-way ticket to running your body. The protagonist eliminates all her clones in one go. Seeing this, the girl is astonished, and the protagonist says he has killed her with his hands before, and that she fell into a waterfall. He asks how she is alive and how she came to the future. The girl says she also thought she was dead, but when her eyes opened, Yeon was standing in front of her. The protagonist is surprised that Yeon came to the future before him. The girl says Yeon gave her a new life, and that she will always be a lawyer. The girl takes a hair-bun stick from her hair and attacks the protagonist with it. She hits him with a pipe, causing him to fall back. As he approaches her, the protagonist says, You think Yeon saved your life, and asks how long she has been here. The girl says for a month. The protagonist says one thing. His body has been rotting for a while. The girl hears this but doesn't understand. Just then, he rips her t-shirt with his pipe, revealing a wound on her hand. The protagonist looks at her and says he had already realized that something had been rotting for some time. The girl thinks Yeon saved her life, but in reality, he was using her as a technique where her obedience was guaranteed, using her like an expendable item. However, the girl doesn't believe it and angrily says she has never heard of such a technique. The protagonist then explains that it's a very normal technique, and the fact that she hasn't heard of it means nothing. Then, the protagonist makes her understand. Think about it. Why would I hide the truth and make you do petty work in disguise? You're not worthy of using anything beyond that. At that moment, she feels like she's surrounded by corpses, and suddenly, one of the corpses comes to life and grabs her in a terrifying way. The protagonist then says, With that being said, there is a way your lifespan can be extended. The inner chi contrasting the chi infused into your body has to be injected. Through that, you can prevent your body from rotting. The protagonist uses the technique, and her wounds start healing. Then he explains, there are only two people who can inject inner chi. One is me, and the other is Yeon. Now the choice is yours. Who will you trust? The girl's hands tremble as she grabs the protagonist's pipe and says, What can I do? I want to live. I'll do anything. The protagonist simply replies, Become a double agent. Then we see the guard outside, and he was wondering why there was so much noise coming from inside and what was happening in there. Just then, Yeon bursts in through the door and tells the president that he should leave this place quickly. There is a lot of danger here. That man is a crazy person. The president then comes inside with Yeon and sees that everything is broken all around. The protagonist apologizes and says he was looking at some things, but there are no expensive items here. His words were a bit strange, but the president says they will talk about it later. He asks if he is okay now, and he replies that he is fine. Finally, Yeon asks if he is hurt. Then he looks at the broken cup and says they couldn't talk properly, and since his tea spilled, they will talk another day. Then the scene changes, when he was a kid standing with his head lowered in front of someone. And that man says, if you want to become a bodyguard, no matter what happens, you will have to protect the person you want to save with your life. From now on, you only draw your sword to protect that person. And that man says to save that person, not just his own life. If his parents' lives are also lost, he will still protect that same person. Then the protagonist's eyes open, and we see him undergoing an examination. Many doctors are looking at his body, and his heartbeat is increasing rapidly. Therefore, the doctor asks him what happened and if he is in any pain. The team leader was standing there. He asks how long he will have to do this, and they tell him that if he is having a problem, he can do it later. This is enough for today. He agrees and starts putting on his t-shirt, thinking to himself that he couldn't believe he had said yes to all of this. Then, we see the protagonist meeting with the girl. They talk for a while, and the girl comments that he arrived very late. As they continue talking, the protagonist keeps ordering a lot of drinks. The girl tells him she doesn't have money, so why is he ordering so many drinks? The protagonist then speaks seriously. He has finally uncovered Yeon's identity. Yeon was part of the family I was protecting, he says. For some reason, Yeon died, but I still can't believe it. He did so much. The girl reveals that Yeon had many secrets. That's why he always wore a mask. The protagonist then asks, so both Yeon and I only came from the future? The girl explains that as far as she knows, both of them arrived here. But even after searching everywhere, she couldn't find anything else about it. Maybe, she suggests, it's just the two of you who came from the future. The protagonist then asks, where is Yeon now? The girl replies, he's currently overseas. At that moment, the protagonist suddenly raises his hand and looks in another direction. The girl, confused, asks what happened. That's when we see Yeon standing there, staring directly at them. Yeon smirks and says, something interesting just popped up. A tense silence falls between them. The girl, for some reason, suddenly yells, this is impossible! After feeling Yeon's presence, the protagonist finally realizes how blind he had been. Obsessed with revenge, he had forgotten the most important thing, the person he was meant to protect. His desire for vengeance had made him lose sight of that. The girl then says, if the three of us are here, then that means she must be here too, the one you were trying to protect. The protagonist clenches his fists. I have to find my lady first. He tells the girl they need to search for her, to see if she exists in this timeline. The girl tries to recall her face, but struggles. So, the protagonist starts drawing. However, his drawing is terrible, so bad that nothing about the face is recognizable. Then, the scene changes. We see a girl running, holding an umbrella. She yells, where do you think you're going, leaving me alone? Her friend, another girl, replies, she's still a student, but she's no less famous than a celebrity. Her fan club is insane. Some guys nearby glance at her with strange looks. The atmosphere turns tense. This could be dangerous. Walking alone might not be safe. The two girls walk together, chatting as they go. But someone is watching them from behind. It's the protagonist and the girl with him. The girl asks the protagonist, do you think she's the my lady you wanted to protect? The protagonist quickly tells her to stay quiet. If you keep talking, they'll hear us. Then we see the two schoolgirls standing in front of two guys. The guys introduce themselves as fans of Seun. They say they want a hug and some private photos. Their words sound creepy. Both of them even smirk and say, you can do that much, right? From above, the protagonist is watching everything. The girl beside him sees the situation and asks, are we just going to stand here and watch? We're not going to help them? The protagonist hesitates. He starts thinking about the girl he wanted to protect, the one with a kind heart, always caring for others, someone who would get flustered over small things. Even the slightest fever made her feel like the world was ending. Just then, the protagonist jumps down. The two fans were trying to force a hug when suddenly another girl, her friend, knocked them down with a single strike. Seeing this, the girl in the above watching, seeing her, it seemed like she was the same girl. Then the protagonist comes in front of her and says that he has come very late, apologizes, and offers his jacket to protect her from the rain. Just then, the girl punches him in the stomach. The protagonist looks at the girl, wondering if she remembers anything. The girl asks, aren't you a fan of Seun? The protagonist says no, and he feels sad. He thinks she hasn't lost her memory. It seems like she is a different person, and the student asks for forgiveness for mistakenly thinking he was with those boys. Suddenly, two men catch the protagonist and say, this is the man who was bothering you. And those two men were trying to take him away, but his strength was too much. They couldn't even budge him. Then the girl tells her manager that the protagonist is not that man. But as they are leaving, the girl looks at the protagonist. The girl thinks that looking at him, it seems like he is the hero of some story, someone she might have seen before. The next day, they go to a place where the protagonist's lady, whom he wants to protect, was buried in that very place. That girl was standing, and he explains that this place was chosen by a historian, which is the best in the country, and the president chose that man. Then the protagonist thinks, my lady, my family record states that she passed away on the day of the rebellion, and her belongings were found in the tomb. Just then he, bowing his head in anger, shouts that in the future he will win. He has gained a lot of experience from defeat, and he slams his fist on the ground in anger, causing the mountains to shake and the birds to fly away. But that girl was with him. She thinks, if my lady is dead, then who was that girl she had seen? Then we see the girl opening the door loudly. Inside, there was no one, just a man sleeping who was the boss. The girl tells her boss that he is the only one who works here. Her boss wakes up from sleep and says, "Bring a ramen for me." The girl says, "I am the only celebrity here at this company and I won't do such work." So her boss gets up and leaves, saying he will do it himself. Just then, the news plays on a nearby screen. It shows a girl named Min Dil Lee, the same girl from the beginning of the story, the one who had staged a suicide. While they're talking, her boss suddenly gets a phone call. He listens for a moment, then shouts excitedly. Min, curious, asks, "What happened?" Her boss grins. "You got an offer. A production company wants you." Min's eyes widen with excitement. "Really? What do they want me to do?" "Go there and find out," her boss says. A while later, Min arrives at the meeting location. But as soon as she sees the place, she frowns. "This, is it? Who holds interviews in such a small place? This isn't what I expected at all." Walking around, she wonders if it's a newly opened production company. Just then, a man steps out and calls her inside. Inside, a few men are drinking. They immediately offer her a drink. Min hesitates. "I'm still young. I don't drink." The two men laugh and apologize. "Are bad. Here, have some water instead." As Min drinks, they try to reassure her. "There's no need to be nervous. This is a huge opportunity for you." One of the men places a hand on her shoulder. "You'll gain a lot from this. If you start working today, your pockets will be full of money in no time." Then his hand moves lower. Min immediately stands up, pushing him away. His voice is calm but firm. "I get it now," he says. "But this isn't the kind of work I'm here for." As Min tries to leave, something happens to her, and they don't even stop her. They were drinking alcohol, and at that moment, the girl fell down. She had been given drugs in her drink, which is why she couldn't walk properly. She was dizzy. One man says, "Everyone knows the boss played well. It's fun for us, too." Then one of them, while talking on the phone, says, "Yes, we're making progress without any hindrances." Then we see the protagonist looking at the moon at night, thinking about my lady and revenge, and he had decided to take revenge. Just then, the girl, his double agent, comes in front of him. The girl says that she has come here to share some interesting information, and she tells him that she has searched a lot about his my lady. In every book, and he found one thing. The girl he thought was his my lady, that girl's name is Min Dul Lee and her family. She's a descendant of the lady blood. She glances at him, watching for a reaction. "I followed her. She's in trouble right now." The protagonist doesn't care and says, "Okay, no problem," and mentions that he has just wasted his time getting this information, but in reality, he was thinking about the girl. The protagonist is told by the girl that she has obtained Min's location, but he doesn't respond and simply closes the door. Soon after, her phone rings, and while talking on the call, she quickly leaves, leaving behind a message for him. Sitting inside, the protagonist is lost in thought about his my lady. He remembers when she once told him, "Whenever you look back, you will always find me there." He thinks to himself, if she is not my lady, then he has nothing to do with her, nor does he need to worry. She is probably safe. Meanwhile, we see his boss at his company. A man had arrived for an interview for a manager position, and after the interview, he was hired. The boss, pleased with this news, wanted to inform Min and called him to surprise him. The scene shifts. A man, his nose bleeding. Another man angrily exclaims, "What the hell happened here?" Furious, he kicks the food off the table and yells, "He messed around too much with that girl." The injured man holding his nose adds, "The drugs were too much. He couldn't have gotten far." We then see Min, barely able to stand, slowly holding onto the wall for support so he doesn't collapse. She thinks to herself, if only she had her phone, she could have called the police while hiding somewhere. Meanwhile, two men rush out trying to catch him. Min can hear their footsteps closing in. She reaches for the door, thinking that if she can get outside, she'll slam it shut behind him. But just as she is about to open it, the two men grab him. They speak to him rudely, and laughing cruelly, begin dragging him back. Just then, the ground starts shaking violently. An earthquake? The lights go out. When they look again, the door they had just locked is now wide open. The moment the lights return, standing behind them is the protagonist, holding the very note that contained the location of this place, and perhaps everything that had happened here. Reading it, the protagonist makes a decision. He cannot leave that girl alone. In a chilling voice, he suddenly speaks from behind the two men. They freeze in shock. Someone is behind them. One of them slowly turns his head and stammers, How did he get in here? Before he can react, the protagonist pushes him away with his hand, and he falls to the ground, bouncing like a ball. Seeing this, the other man panics and immediately lets go of Min. When he looks toward that man, the terrified man runs away and jumps into his car, desperately trying to escape. But just as he starts the engine, the protagonist appears in front of the car. With just one foot, he stops the vehicle in its tracks. The force of his foot pressing down causes the car's front to crumple, its windshield cracking instantly. Shaking with fear, the man scrambles out of the car, but before he can run, the protagonist, filled with rage, kicks the damaged car, sending it skidding backward. Meanwhile, Min lies unconscious on the ground. The protagonist walks over to the trembling man and demands, "What did you do to her? Did you poison her?" The terrified man, trembling, says he didn't give her poison. It was just drugs, and she will regain consciousness after a while. Without a word, the protagonist places his foot on the man's hand and presses down, causing him to scream in pain. In a cold voice, he warns, "If you lied to me and something happens to her, no one will ever find your body." Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps fills the air. A group of men in uniforms rushes toward them. The terrified man's eyes widen in shock. "What's going on?" he mutters. One of the approaching men steps forward and announces, "We are the security team on emergency dispatch." Then, turning to the frightened man, he warns, "If you don't want to get involved in this, leave now." The protagonist ignores them and kneels beside Min, checking her condition. The security team members surround him, and one of them coldly declares, "As of now, we'll be taking this child with us." The protagonist asks who they are, and the security guard replies that he doesn't need to know. He just needs to hand over the girl. If he doesn't give it, they will take it by force. A dangerous glint flashes in the protagonist's eyes. "If you try, don't expect me to just stand here and let it happen." One of the security team members eyes him carefully. "Who are you exactly?" Lifting Min into his arms, the protagonist glares at them and says, "I am this child's manager, just for today."